This is Jennifer Hale, and you're listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. And, I should go.
The tangents this week continue all the way to episode 236. And oh my goodness, my voice. 8 panels. What the heck was I thinking? Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. So let's start off like we do every week on the virtual table and see who joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, we were making the same thing last week when you told us this with the panels.
Yeah, but I hadn't done them yet.
True.
Now I've done them.
Next time we decide to do 8 panels, remember this past weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a good thing this will live on the internet for the rest of the time, so I can go back.
Yeah. Rachel, episode 236.
Yes. Listen to how you sound. It was not pretty. I've sounded worse.
True.
I just sound a little bit like a kid going through puberty. I mean, there's times where I've sounded like Dustin from Stranger Things, so, you know. Yeah, not that part.
No. And yes, we will be doing Stranger Things season 3, but it's going to be a couple more episodes down the line.
Yes.
It is on the schedule.
Yes. It's like, it is in my Netflix queue. I will get to it as fast as possible.
Well, Brittany and I are chomping at the bit to not give her spoilers, and Rachel and I are chomping at the bit not to give Brittany Spider-Man Far From Home.
So many things came out this month.
Oh, my.
Only the second week.
I know. It doesn't seem like it should be the second week of July, but
Yeah, I know.
No.
All right. Well, first let's do the news, since we did skip the news last week. Although not a whole lot has been added to the news since last week, but still. First up, some convention news. Salt Lake Fan X, they made another guest announcement in the form of Jason Isaacs. Depending on what fandom you're part of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's either Lucius Malfoy or I don't know what his character name is on Star Trek. So
Yeah, I can't either.
I don't watch it, so sorry. To me, he's Lucius Malfoy.
Yep.
That should be interesting to have Lucius and Neville at the same convention.
Yeah.
That should make for a fun panel. Oh my. And then as of we're recording this, Fandom Christmas is coming very quickly. Very, very quickly. Not this weekend, but the following weekend is Fandom Christmas, aka San Diego Comic-Con.
Okay.
And while not all of our things are being represented, because as far as I can tell, there's no Doctor Who presence, at least as far as panels or anything this year.
Right. And I know that Supernatural and Arrow are getting one last final hurrah.
Yes.
In Hall H.
Yep.
As it should be.
Yeah. And then Wonder Woman, they pulled out.
Which is surprising.
I think. So, but Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
Marvel, yeah. Never one to shy away.
Oh no!
Even last year, they didn't have a whole lot of presents, but they did have the fandom therapy tents for the post Infinity War folks.
Mm-hmm. Smart move on
This
their
year,
part.
slightly bigger presence. So there's going to be presentations from Marvel Gaming and Marvel Comics, obviously. Those
Marvel,
are
put
always a
yourself
thing.
out there. We might need therapy temps for Endgame, though, too.
Yeah, maybe. That being said, Hall H, which, is the granddaddy of San Diego Comic Con, that's the big kahuna. Anything worth anything gets presented in Hall H. So, on Thursday, so on Thursday, July 18th in Hall H, there's going to be a Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. panel, which is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is getting in Hall H.
About dang time.
No kidding.
Right?
So this is the first time that they'll have been in Hall H. So that's pretty damn exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And
I see it says talent is subject to change. Oh, please, no. I like the listing that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I would say really that's the talent we want.
Yes, exactly. Especially the first two on the list, big time.
Yeah. So there's that. And then Friday, there in Hall H, there's going to be a conversation with the Russo brothers.
Oh, to be a fly on that wall.
Yeah.
To hear that one.
Yeah. So I like in the parentheses, this is not an official Marvel panel.
Yeah.
Might as well be.
And official is in quotation marks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, the Russo brothers, they have done other things besides the MCU, but nobody cares about those.
I was going to say, no one
No.
remembers
Nobody cares
at the
about
moment.
We
No.
just want to talk MCU. Thank you very much. That being said, I did not put this on. I didn't copy and paste it in the show notes, but there is going to be a panel with the guys that helped write Endgame. So,
Oh, cool.
and then, of course, the big kahuna that we're gonna, that we're all gonna be, constantly refreshing the social media feeds for updates is Saturday, because Saturday is the big day. Saturday evening, July 20th, Hall H is the big Marvel Studios presentation. And it's going to be 90 minutes.
Oh boy. So let's see. That would be 7 my time, 8 your time, and Brittany 9 your time. if the math is working.
No, Brittany's on the same time
I'm
as me.
8.
So
you're
it'd
8.
be
I'm
8
sorry. I'm okay.
Wait, where would 9 be?
Somewhere out in the ocean. I'm swimming.
Going for a swim. I don't know. Yeah.
I was excited that like, hey, I can actually pay attention, not see all the updates after work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
if you
but this
happen to hear
is
any loud screaming, it's
yeah. Yeah. So this is the panel because the description for it is one line. So Kevin Feige, that's all you need to know. MCU Kevin Feige. But this is the panel where we're expecting to get announcements for what is next because we don't know. I mean, we know it's in production, but we don't have a release schedule, a proper release schedule beyond Far From Home, which is now out. So it's like if you go online and look like MCU or like Marvel movie releases and websites keep track of like releases. Yeah, it's all speculation, or it says unnamed Marvel movie for specific dates. So it's like
you have to really look at it because it's like, okay, is this a fan made? Here's my wish list movie lineup, or
So,
someone in the know.
yeah, exactly. So this is the panel we're expecting Kevin Feige to say, we're getting this movie on this date, this movie on this date, this movie on this date.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we can start
So-
plotting out the calendar.
So if your internet goes kablooey around that time, you know why.
Yeah, because you could surely expect some surprises. I
Well,
would think.
considering they're
I
saying
will.
this is at least going to be surprise panelists, which I'm curious of what that means. Like,
Yeah, but I
They're
mean
gonna-
that too. But I mean, you never know what they've got potentially planned. I mean, way back in the day when they were making announcements and saying, "Hey, we're doing Guardians of the Galaxy," and people are like, "What? Who?" You know.
Uh-huh.
And now we're all like, "Yeah, I'm Groot."
Yes.
So
Mhm.
you know,
We are Groot.
I expect a surprise or two like that, like some character or group of
obscure
characters
that people
yeah,
really don't know
obscure
about.
characters, yeah, that are like, oh, we're doing that, okay, sign me up.
Mhm.
So
We trust
So.
you, Marvel.
yep.
Yep.
You've done
We
us good
trusted
so
you.
far.
Yeah, we trusted you for 22 movies. Hey, we can trust you for
Oh.
22 more.
Yep. I'll take it.
Mhm.
So that's what we can expect next week as we're recording this. So should be fun. Speaking of movies, not Marvel, but gotta keep ourselves entertained with something. Chauncey and I were lamenting about that last night. It's like that. We both seen Spider-Man Far From Home. It's like now we're stuck waiting. He's like, till what, November? I'm like, no, that's it. We don't know what's coming. We have no schedule.
Yes.
It's like we've got Star Wars later this year.
Yeah.
We got to
but
fill in the
for
gap with
MC
other franchises.
Yeah, but
Well,
for the
actually, we do have
MCU,
it to
not a
November.
clue.
Because we have the when the Disney service comes up, we're gonna have new Marvel
that's right.
shows.
Well, yes, yeah,
We'll
but
have
like,
that new content.
yeah, but we're not going to be rushing to the movie theater to see the next MCU movie for quite a while.
I mean, true.
Well, it's really weird. Well, that being said, we do have some trailers and teasers for other franchises, including our first look at what was previously unnamed. People were just calling it the Jumanji sequel, but now we know it is called Jumanji: The Next Level, which I just based off the trailer. It's gonna be a ride because they've already taken like the expectations that I had and turned it on its head, because we're getting the same in-game faces. So we're still getting The Rock and Jack Black and Kevin Hart and Karen Gillan, but they're not necessarily the same people as they were in the first in the previous Jumanji movie, which is an interesting premise.
Interesting, because it's gonna be the same faces and voices, but they're gonna act different.
Yeah, because
You don't
they're
know
different
what the personalities are
personalities.
gonna be. It's gonna be so. That's gonna. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Because when I first saw it, I did a head tilt. I'm like, wait a minute, did somebody accidentally repeat old news here and had a boom? I'm like, oh nope, it's brand new. Okay,
yep,
sweet.
You
I
forgot
didn't even know this
was
was
gonna
in
be a
the
second one.
talks.
Oh, third
Yeah.
one. Yes.
Oh, which the previous Jumanji movie was a pleasant hit for a lot of people. So yeah, it looks like they are at least going to try to repeat that, without being repetitive, which is nice.
Yes.
So. And then we also got our first teaser for the live action Mulan.
Yes. Oh, it looks good.
Yes, it does.
Does indeed.
Yep.
And I saw one familiar face from Star Trek: The Next Generation as one of the characters.
Yeah.
Mrs. O'Brien.
It looks. It looks like I almost feel like before this comes out that I almost feel like I need to watch like the old like samurai movies.
Yeah.
From back in the day, because that's what it looks like. Because they're unlike like the Lion King and Aladdin and stuff. They're not necessarily going to be putting like the songs and stuff in there.
Right.
I guess because Disney wants to be more respectful to the culture. So they're trying to pull out really, not necessarily erase, but just not repeat some of the stereotyping that they did with the animated version. So
from what I'm hearing, they're going to try to get closer to the actual story.
Yeah, the bit more historically accurate as you can get. So that's cool though. I'm totally down for good, kick-ass samurai female warrior movie. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
We need more of those. Strong
and that comes out
for the win.
Yeah, and then that comes out next year, 2020. So and then if you didn't have enough to keep you occupied over, when you're waiting for the social medias to update from all the stuff from Fandom Christmas, that weekend of July, the 20th and 21st, on YouTube, on the official Doctor Who YouTube channel, they are going to be streaming a bunch of Big Finish in celebration of Big Finish's 20th anniversary of having the Doctor Who license, essentially. So they are going to, I don't think they've released like an official list of like which stories they're going to be doing. They've just said that they're going to feature more than 20 episodes of Big Finish audio adventures featuring David Tennant, Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, and David Bradley, among many others. There'll also be video appearances from plenty of the Doctor's friends, past and present. So, and because it's going to be live streamed, obviously there's a live chat. So you can join in on that. So
hopefully they keep, because they usually hopefully they keep it available. So I know they can do that. Like after the live stream's over, they can keep it. I don't know if there's a time limit, but
I don't think there is. With the YouTube will keep it unless they take it down. So
right.
Okay.
And this is a good chance for those of you who are wondering about Big Finish. This is a way to dip your toe in before
spending some money.
Yeah, taking a deep commitment dive.
Yeah.
Like some of us have.
Although every now and then Big Finish does offer some stuff for free too.
Yes, they do.
I've gotten my hands on some really good audios for free. So
yes.
It's not necessarily just like short trips and stuff like that. So
or a very reduced price during Christmas sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes they'll offer them for like $1. So
yep.
Apparently also during the live stream they're going to premiere the first episode of Legacy of Time. So which is the anniversary box set with the 8th Doctor, River Song, and Bernice Summerfield. The 8th Doctor's going to have his hands full.
Yep.
So that's it for the news. So next couple weeks are going to be quite exciting.
Indeed.
Especially Fandom Christmas. I'm excited for Fandom Christmas. All right. So over the weekend, I was at InConJunction. This was my third year in a row attending, I think. Last year I just attended. And then the year before I did one of the atrium tables. But this year I did a table in the actual vendor hall. Technically I did half a table. So I shared the folding table with someone else. But it actually worked out really well. Because I didn't necessarily need a full table for the stuff that I usually have when I table for things. It's always nice to have a dedicated spot to be able to return to, so people can find you, to set down your crap, so you're not walking around with everything in the kitchen sink. Although this venue, the Marriott East, is small. It's an older hotel. And even though InConJunction essentially takes over pretty much the entire first floor of the hotel is so small that you don't have to do a lot of walking, and it's all carpeted, which is the best thing ever. So even when you're on your feet, it's under carpet. There's no concrete or nothing except out in the parking lot. It's fabulous. So I'm always down for that. So that was nice. My first day, Friday, was my heaviest day panel-wise, because I had 4 panels on Friday, so I was barely at the table because the vendor hall was only open from 2 to 7, and I had panels at 3, 4, 5, and 7, or 6. No, 7. So I was at the table a grand 2 hours on Friday. So I don't know if anybody actually used it, but I did make a schedule of my panels for each day and the time and where they would be, and stuck that at the table and put it at the top, like, not at the table, I'm probably in a panel. Here's probably where I am. So if people swung by and they're like, there's nobody here, hopefully they saw that and they were like, oh, she's at a panel. So because the Lou Harry, who I was sharing the folding table with, was also doing a ton of programming. And then Tammy Joe, who I've done programming with and I've talked to before. I've got an interview with her from InConJunction like 2 years ago. She was in the next table over to my right, and she had a ton of programs. She was doing 9 panels. So she was not at her table a whole lot. Thankfully, she had her husband to man the table when she wasn't there. And then the gentleman to the left of me was an author, so he actually was at his table quite a bit. But still, it was kind of this like stretch of tables where it seemed like hardly anybody was there because we were all just off doing programming. Apparently this year, from what I heard from other panelists and some of the convention staff, is at one point they were actually short on panels, like actual like submitted topics, and had reached out to some people to ask for more ideas, and then they needed people to cover said panels. So that they didn't want the rooms to be empty, essentially, so that people were not wandering around going, there's nothing to do this hour. So there's that. And actually saw one of the con people came up towards the end on Sunday, and they're like, "So, would you like to do some more programming next year?" And I'm like, "Sure, right." Like maybe spread it out a little better next year, so that I'm not doing back to back to back. But yeah, so we'll see. Friday was, like I said, my heaviest panel day. And that started with my first panel, which was those movie/TV moments. The official description in the program book is, we all have them. Those movie or television moments that give us goosebumps or chills, that make you mist up. Come to this panel and share yours. I was the only panelist on this panel, and this was not mine. So whoever submitted it must have had to cancel coming. So it ended up with just me being the moderator, I guess. And essentially it turned into kind of a roundtable discussion, and I was calling it fandom therapy, essentially. Like, because people were kind of sitting there not necessarily wanting to speak right away. And I was like, oh, come on. You all know you have been hurt emotionally at some point by something. Come on. You know you want to let it out.
We all have been emotionally compromised by something.
It's like we've all been emotionally compromised by something. So we had a nice therapy session for about an hour. So that was fun. And then right after that was the panel, The Female Superhero at the Movies, which was, I was just a participant on that one. That was not one that I submitted. But again, another nice conversation, not just with us panelists, but the people in the room. That was a common thing that I found throughout the entire weekend with every panel that I did, is the rooms may not necessarily have been packed, and they never will be, because this is not the type of convention where it's just going to be a crap ton of people. It is on the smaller side, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the people that do come are very enthusiastic about the things they're enthusiastic about, because this really is, they call it a science fiction and fantasy con, which it is to a point, but it's also a literary con too. It just so happens that the authors that they bring in are science fiction and fantasy authors, but there is a very heavy focus on literature. So for all our bibliophiles out there, this would be a good con to come to, especially if sci-fi and fantasy is a genre that you really love to read. Because there were lots of authors with plenty of books to sell. But yeah, the female superhero at the movies, that was a good discussion. Obviously, characters like Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman are at the forefront of that. We did dip our toe a little into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just because, that is an ongoing thing, even though none of those characters have appeared in the movies yet. Can always hope. But they are part of the MCU. So I had to make sure that, Agent May and Daisy and all them got a mention. And then after that was my first submitted panel, which was A Leap in Time, a Quantum Leap celebration, because earlier this year was the 30th anniversary of the premiere of Quantum Leap on TV. So thank you very much. And what was really fun about this panel is when I submitted it, however many months ago I submitted it, at the time, all we had was, obviously the TV series, the DVD, the Blu-ray releases, and the negatives from the the part of the finale that never got aired because the show got canceled, which we talked about when we had Chris and Albie on last year, because it was not long after Allison had found those, and they talked about those on the Quantum Leap podcast. So that's all we had at the time when I submitted this panel. However, from that point to the actual convention, video of said finale has been found. It's very, very bad video, but there is video.
Nonetheless.
Yes. So if you could go to the Quantum Leap Podcast Facebook page, they've shared it. So you can go and see it. If you go to Al's place, they've got the script, or at least a version of the script, which actually goes beyond what the video is found. And this could be a whole conversation in itself. But essentially, if the show had not been canceled when it had, the idea was we're going to get into spoilers here. Sorry, it's been almost 30 years since the finale, so too bad. So the finale of Quantum Leap, the way it ended was the last episode, Sam had leaped into himself on the date of his birth, the literal date of his birth, and was in a bar, an old-fashioned like saloon type bar, with a bartender named Al and a bunch of coal miners who are all portrayed by people who'd previously been in the series playing other characters. And the bartender Al essentially is the embodiment of what Sam and his Al had considered God, time, fate, whatever, who they presumed was forcing Sam to leap. And essentially Sam gets told otherwise. He has kind of a Wizard of Oz moment saying, no, you've always had the power to go home. You just didn't realize it. But instead of going home, at least right away, Sam decides to go back to the end of the episode MIA, where Al's first wife, Beth, we discover when Al becomes a POW in Vietnam, he's declared dead, and so Beth moves on, and by the time he's rescued, he's repatriated, she's remarried, and Al's never gotten over that, and that's why he suffers from alcohol and womanizing, and why he's married so many times. So Sam decides to leap back, tell Beth that Al is alive and is coming home, and the finale that airs is we just get pictures of Al, an older Al with an older Beth and all their kids, and like a thing on this, like just like a title card on the screen saying that Al and Beth have been married for like 39 years. They have 4 daughters. Oh, and by the way, Dr. Beckett never returned home. And that's the way the series ended because it got canceled. Which, depending on how you look at it, it's either the best finale or the worst finale for that show. So, anyway, it always been rumored that there was more to that finale, and if the show had not been canceled. Donald P. Belisario, the creator of Quantum Leap, has always said that was a bunch of bullcrap, and says that anybody who says otherwise is delusional. Until Allison found those negatives last year, which again we talked about. You can go back and listen to that episode if you want, where there are at least still images of Al and Beth, presumably in the present of Quantum Leap, which is 1999, and talking about Sam. Now we have this video. That was weird.
Yeah.
Interference.
Yeah.
Gushy, we need a lock. Somebody hit the hand link.
Sam, Al, you're more than welcome to put your 2 cents in. You don't need to with this one.
We need a better lock. Zinky can't get a lock. So anyway, so now we have this video of Al and Beth talking about how wherever Sam has leaped, it's presumably in the future. And while they could try to get a lock on him, by the time they do, he could potentially leap again. Beth, the video just ends with Beth, reassuring Al that you'll find him because you two are best friends and you're very close. And, it's like, if you can, that sort of thing. And that's where it kind of ends. However, the script, which has been released out into the internet and has been confirmed by people involved in the production, is how it was going to go if the show had continued. Beth would have convinced Al that he needs to leap to find Sam, but to be able to find Sam first, he needs to go to the bar and talk to the bartender, because he would presumably know where Sam had gone, so that Al would know where to leap to specifically. And so Al goes to the bar, meets the bartender Al, and essentially gets his own Wizard of Oz moment with the bartender telling him, if you want to leap, you can, and go find Sam. You have to know that you will no longer be a hologram, so you're not going to have the same perks that you had before, where people can't see you, hear you, cars drive through you, that sort of thing. But you can leap to go find Sam. So Al leaps into essentially the same bar, but a futuristic version of it, with all of the coal miners now being future space pirates, and Al leaping into the body of a really hot, like, blonde woman with big yabos, and getting hit on. And that would have been the teaser, the cliffhanger at the end of season 5. So season 6 would have seen them going into the future with Al as the leaper. So.
And to paraphrase Dr. Beckett, oh boy.
Yes, and it would have ended with Al doing the oh boy instead. But all of this has been, like, uncovered in the last year and a half or so, which has been a boon for Quantum Leap fans. Mm-hmm. For those that are aware that this stuff has been uncovered, and that's why I was really excited to do this panel now, because even everyone else on the panel with me were fans, and everybody in the audience who attended the panel were also fans, but not necessarily just because you're a fan of something means that you keep up on the latest and greatest, especially if it's something that's not currently in production or any, property that no one's seemingly doing anything with. So it was fun to kind of drop this info on everybody and to be like, oh, by the way, because you probably haven't been paying attention, we've got pictures and video and a script now for the finale that never happened. So that was fun. That ended up being a big chunk of what we talked of the time slot for the panel. It's like, before we could have just, waxed poetic and reminisced about, like, favorite episodes and stuff like that, but now it became here's what could have happened if the show not been canceled type of thing, and that was quite fun. And I actually had people that are like, where can I find this video and stuff later? So I can look at it again later. Like, here, let me give you these links. Visit the Quantum Leap podcast. They've got everything, essentially. So, and they're doing a very, very good job about making sure that the franchise like stays alive, and the fact that we're finding this stuff just makes it even better. So, but for me, that was definitely one of the highlights of the entire convention, was being able to share that.
So there's something bittersweet about talking about the what ifs and if this show went longer.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun and a little aw at the same time.
Yeah. And I missed opening ceremonies because I was at the table for the last hour. And then after that was the Doctor Who The Year in Review panel. So we got to talk about Jodie Whittaker's first season as the Doctor, Chris Chibnall's first season as the showrunner, all that fun stuff that we experienced with Doctor Who last year. And again, another good conversation, not just with the panelists, but the people attending as well. So, and then after that, I went home because I was tired. No, that's a lie. I did not go home right away. I did pop into Tammy Jo's panel after that, which was "How has Me Too affected fandom?" So that was a interesting discussion, both from as a fan of things and also as someone who I'm not going to get into it, but someone who has #MeToo. So, so there's that. And then I went home and that died because it was a very long day and I was tired. So the Saturday was the long day, essentially. The vendor hall was open 10 to 6. Thankfully, I only had 2 panels that day, and the first one was not until 2. So I was able to hang out at the table and talk to people and work on things, which was nice. And then I had that first panel was the other panel that I submitted, which was Podcasting 101, which sounds exactly what it sounds like. I had notes because I've done this panel several times at different conventions, not just this one. So I had my notes. I ended up not really using them because the people that came for the panel actually had a lot of questions. So it ended up being a Q&A for pretty much the entire hour, which was really nice, actually. And then Carl from PopCon decided he was in the audience too, even though he didn't have any questions, but he still jumped in on the conversation, though, as someone who's been, knows a thing or two about like advertisers and stuff from, running PopCon and that sort of thing. So, but that was a really good like Q&A type conversation, which was nice. And then there was the other panel I did, which wasn't until 5, which was the best book I've read since InConJunction 2018. This is something Tammy Jo does every year. And our list with all of us combined was quite long. Tammy Jo was like, okay, I'm gonna have to limit y'all next year, whoever's involved. The nice thing is that they don't have to be books that have come out since InConJunction. It just has to be something you've read that's new to you since last InConJunction, which is good because only 2 of the books that I included have been published in the last year. Ish. So, because I had Good Omens, which obviously is old. But then I had the Good Omens script book, which is brand new.
Yes.
I had the essentially the book version of Randy Pausch's last lecture, and then Ashley Eckstein's book, so which was published last year. And then there's everyone else had lots of books that I had not heard of. Some I had. There was a few that I'd heard of. But a lot of them were all new to me. There's a few that sound interesting that I may need to see if like my library has them and give them a go. If anyone wants the list, I have a copy of the PowerPoint, so I can copy and paste. I can copy and paste the titles and authors.
That would be
I can put that. Yeah. I'll just copy and paste that and put it in the show notes, and then people can go look for whatever their best resource is for purchasing said books. So whether it's
I want to see how many I've read or need to take a look-see at.
Yeah. Although if your preferred book purchasing location is Amazon, we do have an affiliate link.
Hint, hint, hint.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So after that panel was the masquerade, aka costume cosplay contest. So that's always fun. Cosplay is not necessarily a huge thing with this convention. So there was 9 contestants. Okay. If you include the contestant, non-contestant gate crasher that I will mention here in a moment. Technically, there were 8 people actually dressed up in costume.
Okay.
That'll make sense in a second.
Okay.
So, but it's always fun to see, what people decide to dress up as. Because some people, they will cater their costumes to like the theme of the convention. Some don't care. It's just, whatever they want to dress up as or whatever it is they've completed recently, that sort of thing. So it's always fun to see what people come up with as far as, costumes and stuff. What was fun is in the middle of the cosplay contest, after they had presented all the contestants and then the judges went to deliberate and do their scoring and everything, there was a wedding. So this is now the 3rd or 4th convention wedding I've attended.
Wow.
So yeah, they did. There was a couple. They decided to do a traditional hand fasting ceremony, which is a new experience. I've never seen something like that before, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, so in the process of the convention, and I actually knew he was there beforehand. Because I had spotted him earlier. He actually came into the vendor hall and was walking. It did like a lap around the room with like his little entourage. But he was, because Friday night, I think it was Friday night. Yeah. Friday night, they did a screening of or it's a play. Called Arcade Fire, The Redemption of Billy Mitchell.
Interesting.
Yeah, so apparently this was a local playwright. She wrote the book for the musical, and they did a full cast reading of the play, including the songs and with some visuals. And then afterwards, after the presentation, they did a like Q&A along with Billy Mitchell, who was supposed to be Skyped in. But at one point on social media, InConJunction, it mentioned that they were trying to get Billy Mitchell to actually show up in person. I don't know at what point he actually did show up, so I don't know if he was actually there Friday night and I just missed him, or if he arrived on Saturday. But he was definitely there Saturday. because it was really funny because I was at my table in the vendor hall, and so this was in between panels, and I just so happened to look to my right because it was me and then Lou, who was barely at his table because he was so busy, and then Tammy Jo's table, and actually the Shake-Ups were the table after that. So they had like their music playing, which was quite fun because I had their version of the Scooby-Doo theme song stuck in my head for a while. Thanks, guys. But I just so happened to look over that direction, and at one of the tables beyond that, there was this person that I could just see him from the back wearing this white suit with this long brown hair. And my first thought was, is somebody cosplaying John Lennon? Because that's what he looked like from the back. Then he turned around and I went, holy crap, that's Billy Mitchell. He actually showed up. And at that point, I think nobody really knew who he was. And I think a lot of people still don't really know who he was. So if you don't know who Billy Mitchell is, I don't know where it's still available online to watch it, but in 2007, there was a documentary called King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters. And it's this documentary about this guy, just this random average Joe, who is working to break the world record score on Donkey Kong, which is held by Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell is supposedly supposed to be one of the best arcade video game players of all time. He would fit right into Ready Player One, in theory. There's this documentary. It came out in 2007. It was on Netflix for a while. At this point, it probably isn't anyway. It may be. I'm sure you can find it other places like Amazon and probably iTunes. You could probably rent it too. Billy Mitchell, if you are in the video game, specifically arcade kind of, fandom, he's well known. Outside of that, he looks like Jesus and John Lennon had a child, kind of.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So I knew of Billy Mitchell because when I was in college, when I was an undergrad, I took a class called The History of Video Games, which was taught by one of my professors. And then when I was a grad school in a TA, I TA'd for that class a couple semesters. So I've sat through that class several times, and Billy Mitchell comes up just because he is a name in the gaming pantheon. So I knew who he was. So when he showed up, part of me was like, holy crap, that's Billy Mitchell. So the thing is, though, I believe it was last year, 2018, it was discovered that some of Billy Mitchell's arcade records, including records that had gone into like the Guinness Book of World Records, had been faked. He had cheated. And therefore he had been stripped of those records. That's been in the last couple of years.
Deal with the tinkering on the inside of the arcade machine.
So that's a thing. But apparently Billy Mitchell does not care. And a combination of his own ego, I guess, and this play musical thing. He's now on like a redemption tour, trying to, I guess, get back in the good graces of fans or something. I'm not entirely sure. But like I said, I had seen him when he showed up in the vendor hall, so I knew he was there. So then when I went to the masquerade and they got through the contestants and the guy emceeing it was like, oh, we have one late entry. But apparently this guy is dressed as the greatest video game player of all time. Billy Mitchell. So, and then everybody in the cosplay contest got a prize except for Billy Mitchell. But apparently he was supposed to do some sort of like Q&A, but nobody got the memo or something, so he ended up leaving with like his entourage to go get a meal. And I saw him walking around with like his entourage. And he actually walked by me at one point, and we made eye contact, and he said hi, and I said hi, and that was about it. And then I never saw him again the rest of the weekend. But for a short while there, I was crossing paths with the infamous Billy Mitchell.
Not gonna lie, I haven't heard of him until you posted something in chat.
Yeah.
I was definitely one of those people who have no idea who he was.
Yeah. Sean knew who he was, but Sean's a little older, so.
I kind of remembered the name, but then until you posted the Wikipedia link, did it click with me a little more.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that name sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Supposedly he's not necessarily the nicest person. He, again, ego. Which even in the Fistful of Quarters, the documentary, you can kind of tell he's kind of a jerkwad, where he's a bit full of himself, and I think he probably still is. I guess having your record stripped hasn't humbled him any. He seemed nice enough, but just kind of the way he carried himself, he was like. I don't know if he presumed that people would know who he was and grovel at his feet like Garth and Wayne, like we're not worthy or something. I don't know.
You think he would be a little more humbled after what happened? Like
you would think. I never got to hear him talk though, so that's the thing. I'm making presumptions just on body language, and the way he carried himself. But since I never actually got to hear him talk, I don't know for sure. So
maybe he's putting that outward persona forward while
I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
don't know.
But there were some flyers posted throughout the hotel with his face on them. Apparently he's going to be coming back during Gen Con for another performance of or screening or presentation of Arcade Fire, I guess, and he's going to be doing a VIP meet and greet at the arcade place downtown. I think there's a new place that just opened that's like a retro arcade bar type thing. I'm not entirely sure, so I guess I could try and find that information. So if you're coming to Gen Con and you really, really want to meet Billy Mitchell, you're going to have an opportunity, I guess. So. But that was a thing that happened during the convention. So I made sure I sent a message as soon as I realized he was there off to the professor that teaches that class. But he wasn't on Facebook, and I don't think he's been on Facebook recently. So who knows when he's actually going to see my message, and he's going to be like, "What?" It'll be interesting to see his reaction is when he finally sees my message.
You have a chance for Gen Con.
Yeah, really. So that was Saturday. And then Sunday was actually another kind of short day because the vendor hall was only open 11 to 3, I think. Yeah, 11 to 3. And again, I had 2 panels back to back at noon and 1. So I was not at the table a whole lot. So my first panel on Sunday was The Marvel Saga. Did it end well? Which was, again, another, I don't want to say heated conversation. Because for the most part, people were, for the most part, people actually were quite happy with, how the MCU went going in, we really only talked up to Endgame because at that point, Spider-Man Far From Home hadn't even been out a week yet. So people hadn't seen it. So we didn't want to talk Spider-Man. Right. But up through Endgame, it was pretty much across the board. Most people were happy with it. Going forward, what people want to see was definitely varied. As far as what characters people would like to see, what we could presume is coming, especially now that Disney's purchased Fox, and that sort of thing. Again, Kevin Feige, Hall H, fan of Christmas. We'll find out.
Yes.
So that was again another fun panel to be on because I'm a huge fan of the MCU. I don't have the comic book knowledge to necessarily back it up like some of these other people did, but I know enough to get myself into trouble.
Right.
Yeah. I do my research when necessary. So I will dive into the actual comic book lore when I need to fill in some gaps.
Right. And then sometimes once it's seen, it can't be unseen.
Yeah. So, and then the last panel I did was Remembering Game of Thrones, which was people had opinions.
Another spirited session, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like necessarily angry or anything, but people had opinions on how Game of Thrones ended and how they thought it should have ended, and how they think that the books will actually end if George R. R. Martin ever bothers to finish writing them. Although there was also this, I had this discussion several times with different people on people speculating whether he ever will finish the books, is actually actively working on the final two books, or he actually has finished the final two books and is just sitting on them. So
interesting.
Only he knows. Although there is going to be a Game of Thrones panel at Fandom Christmas, so maybe we'll get some information then. I don't know.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah. Or are we going to be getting more about the prequels for the Game of Thrones?
Probably. That would probably be more likely. So that was my last panel. I went back and manned the table, my part of the table, for another hour, and then it was all over. So packed up and went home and felt like death because I was very tired by then. So,
but not death from Good Omens.
Yeah. Good Omens got brought up quite a bit over the weekend. Not just in the book panel, but outside of the panel. And it was all good. That's the thing. Is like everybody except for one person really loved the TV series. So
Sweet.
Yeah, the one person, I think they're just crazy. So and I was like, no, just they're like, I watched like part of the first episode and it was okay. I'm like, no, skip ahead, episode 3. Watch that 20 minutes going right before the title sequence. If that doesn't grab you, then yeah, you're not gonna.
It's not for you.
It's not for you. So, but no, overall, I had a really good time in InConJunction. Like I said, it's a small, very chill, laid back convention. They're not about like the big name celebrities and that sort of thing. Billy Mitchell aside. So this is I forget exactly how I described it at one point to somebody over the weekend because there were some vendors that this was their first time at this convention, so they didn't necessarily know what to expect. But I said, this is the type of convention where if you want to hang out with like-minded people who are into the same thing you're into and want to have really good conversations about that, this is the perfect convention to come to, where it's not about there's a lot of programming, a lot of paneling, but they're not huge panels with large groups of people trying to do like Q&As with celebrities or, that sort of thing. It's, every panel I did, like I said, was not a packed room, but I would never expect a packed room for really anything at this convention, because there's just not enough people that attend, but that's fine. But every panel I did, the people that did show up were really into whatever the topic was and willing to jump in, ask questions, voice their opinion. I would rather have be on a panel in a room with like 5 people, but have those 5 people be really into it and, participating in said panel and have that conversation back and forth than have a room packed full of people and nobody's saying a word. Where, you've got some person at the front just yammering on and nobody is participating. So I definitely enjoyed this convention for that, where, we had some really great conversations about varying topics. I mean, how many times do I get to have a weekend where I get to talk podcasting, which is something that I really love and passionate about, and Quantum Leap in the same weekend, and be equally passionate about both conversations. I can't fault this convention for that. I love the fact that the venue is smaller, so I don't feel, even though I had a very packed schedule, I never really felt like I was rushing around. I got to talk to and see people that I see at other bigger conventions, and reconnect with them. And at the same time, connect with some new people. I got there on Friday, and setting up, checking in, and finding the table and getting set up didn't take as long as I thought it was going to. So I decided to take my schedule and wander the halls and double check to make sure I knew where each panel room was. And in the process of doing that, I had some random person ask, "Hey, do you have decent handwriting?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess it's okay." They're like, "Great. Can you come with me?" And for the next hour, I proceeded to help in the gaming room with some signage. They needed someone that could write in halfway legible handwriting, some signage that would go up throughout the hotel so that people would know where to find the gaming, for one, and what kind of gaming was happening. So I got to flex my artistic muscles a little bit in drawing some things to make it more eye-catching and using different colored markers and stuff. So that was, it's not something I was expecting on doing, but I did, and it was fun. Really the only my one downside to this convention is it was cold in the hotel. Especially in the vendor hall.
Cranked up.
Yes, it was really cold, and that did not help my throat any at all, having the cold air. I tried to do my best. I'm sorry if anyone stopped by the table and was expecting me to go in some spiel about the podcast. There was a couple of times where I just flat out told the people, I'm doing 8 panels this weekend. I'm trying to preserve what voice I'm going to have this weekend. So I apologize if I'm not being overly talkative like I normally am or normally would be. And they totally understood that, which was good. And the cold air did not help me. I tried to, keep my throat, moisturized and, that sort of thing. But just the cold air after a while, it dries you out, and it's not fun. So I'm going to have to bring like my fourth doctor scarf with me or something. Be like, I can keep the vocal cords warm. That and just the way that the panels were scheduled. I would have liked to have had more time to be at the table, especially Friday and Sunday, but really Saturday was the busiest day, and that was the day that I got to spend the most time at the table. So it works its way and evens its way out. But I didn't necessarily enjoy having, 3 panels back to back to back right out of the gate on Friday. So it essentially, I had an hour break and then another panel. So I had 4 hours of programming within a 5-hour block, which that's a lot. That's a lot of talking. Especially right out of the gate on the first day of the convention. But really, that's just it. I could have gone later. I don't remember what the time blocks were as far as what my options were as for when I said I could be available. So maybe that's partially on me, and what my availability was, as far as their programming was concerned. I still gotta figure this convention out to make it worth my while. I think it was worth it, all things considering. The table was really inexpensive, and then my badge was comped because I was doing so much programming. So other than the gas and the small fee for the table, I wasn't out a whole lot, and it was a good opportunity to get in front of some more faces, pass out business cards, that sort of thing. So hopefully maybe we've picked up some new listeners from over the weekend. But just trying to find the balance because of the way this convention is scheduled. I've just got to find the right balance of paneling versus not, versus how late in the evening do I want to be there, turn around to the next day, that sort of thing. So hashtag first world problems. As I take another drink of water. So that was my weekend in InConJunction. Overall, I had fun. I would do it again. I would totally do it again. So 8 panels, maybe not so much. Maybe if they were more spread out. But besides that, I would totally do it again. We'll see, because this convention is always essentially the same weekend, that first weekend in July. But because PopCon is the following weekend, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how much I do InConJunction next year, just because PopCon is the following weekend next year. So I don't necessarily want to overtax myself. Again, hashtag first world problems. So with that, if we have any new listeners, and even our current listeners, this is where we beg for money. As I said in the Podcasting 101 panel, there is no money in podcasting. There's money in advertising. That being said, if you want to support us, either by warm fuzzies or sharing us with your friends and family, or you want to financially support us, you can do that in a number of ways. Obviously, we are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I did not take a lot of pictures this weekend. There wasn't really a whole lot to take pictures of, other than Billy Mitchell, the few pictures I took of him. But we're pretty active on definitely Facebook. We're definitely very active on there. And then Twitter and Instagram when the need arises, especially going into Fandom Christmas. That will probably be a lot of retweeting. So there's that. So if you want to follow us on those, that's easily enough. Obviously, the show is available pretty much anywhere you could get podcasts. So not iTunes, because Apple is retiring iTunes. It's Apple Podcasts. Gotta get the name right. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, a lot of those platforms. You can find us. Obviously, we're also on YouTube. So you can listen to the show there. Plus, we have video from events like PopCon. So you can watch those. If you want to financially support us, you can do that via Patreon. So you can sign up to be a Patreon supporter for as little as $1 a month. And so that would be a recurring donation. Also our Amazon affiliate link, which I wink, nudged a little earlier. So any of those books from the book panel, if you decide to buy via Amazon, or if you have yet to pick up your Blu-ray box set of the Quantum Leap series, you can do that via Amazon as well. And or anything else. We get a small kickback from that. So we're always grateful for people that use that to make their purchases on Amazon. And Amazon Prime Day is coming up soon too, I think. So if you're planning on participating in Prime Day, if you're a Prime member, you can still use your Prime account and support us. So win-win. There is also Ko-fi, where you could make a one-time donation of any size. And you don't have to do recurring or anything. You just want to give us your spare change. We'll take it. And then our Redbubble store, where you could buy shirts and mugs and other things with our logo on it, along with a number of other designs. I just added a new design yesterday.
Ooh.
For a certain apocalypse that didn't happen. Inspired design. So, and then I've got ideas for some others. So that came up over the weekend. So there is that. And of course, we're always just happy when people drop us a line or a tweet or whatever saying, hey, we're listening. We like what you're doing. Warm fuzzies. We're all about the warm fuzzies.
Yes, we are.
So with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem saying goodnight.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm going to shut up now.
You have been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at thefivishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and any other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you wish to support the show, the easiest way is to leave us a rating and review on iTunes. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/5ishfangirlspodcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to keep the show going. For official 5ish Fangirls merchandise, visit redbubble.com/people/5ishfangirls. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at 5ishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5ishfangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and may the squee be with you.